Hey guys, it's Michael Beatrice here today recording my testimony. I've shared my testimony many different times before, which has been such an honor and a privilege. I've shared my testimony as little as 10, 20 seconds, maybe trying to get someone out the door, or all the way up to probably 40, 45 minutes sharing on a stage. Today I wanted to come before you and do this in video format. This is something the Lord has put on my heart probably at the end of 2023. I kept hearing my heart share your testimony, and just like I just mentioned, I've shared it many times before, so I kind of had to really discern what the Lord was saying, but I almost immediately knew that I needed to record it. Many of you watching, I'm sure, have known me in some sort of capacity. We either know each other from work or previous school, middle school or elementary school, high school. We go to church together, small group, wherever it may be. And of course, this is intended for anybody. I want as many people as possible to see this, whether you're a Christian or not, to encourage you, and also, especially if you're not a Christian, to sort of provide a practical, in my opinion, and from my perspective, a practical reality that I would hope would make sense to you, and make maybe everything that I've said in the past more relatable than just words, or just maybe what you see on social media or wherever it may be. So yeah, I'm excited to share this with you. Yeah, I'll hop right into it. This is going to be unedited. It's unscripted. As I just mentioned, I've shared it many different times before. I don't know where it will necessarily lead, but I believe that God will guide me to share the best that I possibly can. And I hope that it encourages you wherever, in whatever capacity that you know me, whether we've known each other really well or you don't know me at all. So, like I said, my name is Michael Beatrice. I did not grow up in a religious household. I grew up in what you would call nominal Catholicism. So we went to Catholic Mass, but we didn't even really go Easter or Christmas. We went, every so often we did the sacraments, First Communion, and of course I was a baby, but I got baptized into the Catholic faith. We did, the confirmation, it's called, in my sophomore year of high school. So I had the Jesus that I knew, he hung on the cross at the front of the church. You have, of course, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, the different prayers, different songs. I didn't know any of them too well, to be honest, because we hardly ever went to what you would call Mass. Going on a Sunday. So I had, my upbringing would be essentially what you would call, what a lot of people would call, if you're not a Christian, a normal upbringing. You go to your respective religious, meeting, your congregation, whether it be Saturday or Sunday or whatever, and you go to school, you play sports and all these different things. So I have two sisters. I have, of course, a mom and a dad, we did not, we didn't grow up with really any religious pursuits. My family grew up Catholic, and nobody's really practicing today, I would say, in that sense. And so, yeah, we didn't. My relationship with Jesus, from how I understand, following him and having a relationship with him, it is completely different than what I would see as an average Catholic experiences, or anybody who is, of course, religious but apart from Jesus would experience. so yeah, I grew up playing sports. I guess I would say I wasn't the nicest person. I could make friends, and you know I was good at sports and stuff like that. But I think because I'm short, I'm only 5'6", but I think getting made fun of early on, I kind of retaliated in that way, and I'm sure some of it, of course, has to do with your upbringing. If you're not following Jesus, you're gonna probably react differently than you would if you were following Jesus. So um, yeah, I mean, I played baseball and soccer and golf and different stuff like that, and you know, um, I'm sure did okay in school. Nothing spectacular, and I have smart family members and stuff like that, and we all kind of have a business background and mindset. So yeah, I mean, I would say again, pretty average, pretty normal upbringing. Nothing too out of the ordinary of especially the stark contrast of what I'm sharing today and where my life is now. Um, I'm sure some Christians, of course, listening to this have their whole lives, in a sense, been introduced to what relationship with God is like. For me, I had no framework of what that was or what that looked like. So, yeah, athletic, school. So this is sort of really where the meat of my testimony will start to pick up is sixth grade. Depending on on who you are, you'll have more understanding of what I'm talking about as far as the detail goes. But I had a best friend in sixth grade. We were going to Epcot on a field trip to Disney World, and he started talking about this game called World of Warcraft, and at this time I was playing both baseball and soccer at the same time, and we go on this trip, and he starts talking about all these. I'm like, wow, that sounds really interesting, and so the trip was great, and after the trip, I asked my parents to get the game, and I started to play World of Warcraft, and that began I would call it a descent downward, kind of a downward spiral of my life in general, and just sort of, led to, of course, where I'm at today. And I'm thankful. I'm 30 as I record this. I'll be 31 in a couple months. But I got born again, which is if you're not if you're not a Christian, you I'm sure there's probably a stigma on that word, and so I got born again when I was 22 years old, and came to know the Lord, and have a relationship with Him, and so sixth grade, I start playing this game, and I get pretty addicted to it, and I would play. When the summertime hit, I played, I think, up to 14 hours a day. I just let everything else go. I let sports go. I let friends go, even at that young age, and just played that game with a couple of my friends, and especially the friend who introduced it to me. And that really started a 10-year cycle of depression and up and down and being addicted to different things. I can't remember exactly. I believe it was in eighth grade that my parents got divorced. And I think that took an emotional toll on my family. We all handled it in different ways. I more internalized it, but I didn't necessarily, I love my parents, and I honor and respect them. And, but that's a tough thing for any kid to experience. And of course it's tough for the people getting divorced. But yeah, I would say it took a more inward toll on me, and I didn't express it outwardly too much, and I don't think it hit me as hard as other family members, just because of my perspective on that. So now, so I played World of Warcraft on and on. I would say off and on. I would say I played for I don't know, an acute period of time where I would play a lot, and then I would stop playing, and then I would try to do something else, maybe get in good shape or whatever. And then, so I go to high school, and I'll just, freshman year, not much to say there, but my sophomore year of high school is when I just wanted to try, I wanted to try smoking weed. I had always heard about it. One of the friend that did introduce me to the game had been doing it, and I was curious myself, and I ended up doing that. And one of my great friends today, it was actually the first time it was at his house, and he got born again. Let's see, I guess this is a year and 9 months now that he's been born again. He's coming up on 2, and I've just seen incredible things happen in his life, and it's been amazing. But yeah, so I started to smoke weed and really experiment there. I stopped, and then junior year I picked it up more, and was doing that more regularly. But I would say throughout high school, I was never pothead or anything like that. I would do it, once on the weekends. And then I remember towards the end of my junior year, I was like, okay, I want to start getting into it a little more. I wanted to start buying my own. And then I remember I got high one time, and I was on my back porch, and I just started to have this feeling like, this is not for me. This lifestyle is not for me. And I ended up crying and just like flushing it down the toilet. And I remember I took the SATs that summer too. And I remember I took it, and I was just like, wow, like I feel really dumb. I feel really stupid. I'm pretty sure I mentioned earlier in this video that, come from, I have intelligent family members and stuff like that. I wouldn't say we're geniuses or anything, but smart enough to do well in school. Thankfully, that's, definitely a gift. I kind of realized I was going nowhere in life. And in high school, I'll briefly mention this, but I played golf. And so playing World of Warcraft, I lost some athleticism, as you can imagine, sitting down all the time. So I played golf, which obviously doesn't require as much athleticism as some other sports. But my dad played college golf, and I really enjoy the sport. It's a good one. So I played that in high school, all 4 years. And I took the SATs. I felt stupid. I think because of smoking weed, my mind kind of felt dumb. Kind of felt fried a little bit. And so, I just kind of had this epiphany that, I'm not doing anything with my life. But I had all these different thoughts in my head of what I want to do in my life. Do I want to pursue professional golf or do all these different things? I wasn't ever that great at golf to, I don't think, go that route, or it wasn't something ever that was really in my heart. I'm sure I could have gotten really good, but it was never a huge passion of mine to actually go that route. I thought I might have wanted to do that, but so that junior year summer of high school, I kind of got my butt in gear. To start my senior year, I had a 2.77 GPA. But I had this moment of like, okay, I'm not going anywhere, but I can go somewhere. I can, the possibilities, especially in the United States of America, you can do anything with your life. You can start out at a community college and end up at Harvard, or some prestigious school. Right. And I think that is absolutely incredible. And so, I really started to, take academics seriously. And, in Georgia, they have something called a Hope Scholarship, and you need a 3.0 on the dot, to get that scholarship. I think when I got it, it covered like 90% of your tuition. And, in order for me to really go to college, I needed that. So I got really into studying. I got really into, you can call it intellectualism, but I really admired all the people who did really well in school. I didn't have that understanding of like, I should get good grades and really try to attend a good university. Something I would definitely be able to help my kids with now, if that's the route I don't have kids right now, but my future kids, if that's the route they want to pursue. So I got really into that, really into studying and reading. I had been a reader somewhat earlier in my life, but never, I'd come home from school. I would eat food and play video games. Like I didn't care about homework. I didn't care about anything like that. Of course, besides smoking weed, there's other stuff that you can imagine that young teenage boys do, and it's not good. So exposure to different inappropriate things that you wouldn't want, I think is, whether whoever's watching this, I think it's extremely harmful and damaging, and I know it damaged me a good bit. So I go into college. I got a 3.0 on the dot, by the way, 2.77. I got a ton of A's that year. I don't even know. I don't think I got a single B. So I got a 3.0 on the dot, and my whole goal was transfer to the University of Georgia. I started out at Georgia Southern, and my goal was to go to UGA and probably get a PhD at some really prestigious school. I was thinking Harvard, or pursuing law. I was trying to think of a career. So I originally declared my major as philosophy. I might have also declared a double with history, but I really wanted to go into law and then transfer, or go into law and transfer to UGA and have that sort of background. I remember taking a philosophy course my freshman year of college, and at the end of it, I was a bit disappointed. I think this was my first semester. Yeah, it must have been. And essentially you come away with the mindset that everything is relative, and that sort of depressed me. And what I mean by relative is that, people all around the world experience different things, and what's true or right for me here in America and Georgia may not necessarily be true for someone in Southeastern Asia who has never heard of Jesus. So, just to quickly clarify, I believe that one truth persists for all, applies to all. I'm not necessarily going to get into the doctrinal side of things, but just really share what Jesus has done in my life. And I believe, because if if everything is relative, I guess me sharing this testimony it would be very pointless. So let's see. Yeah. So philosophy. I kind of, once I kind of had no hope in that sense, I was really, my senior year, I started to get more philosophical and started to think more deeply about life. What's the meaning of life? Why am I here? I'm sure many of you have heard of Joe Rogan and have listened to his podcast. I was listening to that back in 2012. I think actually starting in 2011, right before January 2012, and just sort of had my mind open to life isn't just what I've taken it to be for as long as I've lived, and sort of expanded my mindset. Actually, my senior year, this is important. I became agnostic. I watched a documentary called The Secret, and it talks about the law of attraction and different stuff like that. And I sort of started to believe that the universe was God. So getting away from my Catholic upbringing, and started to believe that the universe was God, that it had a force, that it loved me. So I believed in a higher power. I wasn't necessarily, I guess, exactly sure it was. I think the proper term actually for that wouldn't be agnostic, but more a pantheist, someone who believes that the universe is God itself. But yeah, so I guess that would be an important thing to share there. So yeah, my freshman year of college goes well, and I start off with all A's. I think I started out taking 18 hours and get all A's, and I'm well on my way to go to the University of Georgia. I was trying to get out of Georgia Southern as quickly as possible. Not that it was a horrible school or anything like that, but I know that, again, my goal was to go as high as you can possibly go. And I started to find my identity in that. So whereas I may have tried to find my identity in golf or working out before, or whatever it may have been in before this period of time, I started to do that with academics as well. So my second semester, I think I got all A's except one biology course. I got a B. I probably should have read the chapters more than once before. I did some preparation, but I just don't think I connected super well with that biology course. At least the test felt a little different from what I read. I probably should have read it twice though. No excuses, right? Um, so that summer is fine. Still sort of the same mindset that I've had before, but I began to switch what I kind of wanted to do. I progressively was like, well, I don't really see much of a career path. If I don't want to get either a PhD in philosophy, and again, I know I said law, I don't really see myself as a lawyer, and I don't really want to pursue that route. I'm going to go the business route. So I started to do business and switch my major over to finance. And you have to take, of course, different courses if you want to pursue a different degree. So I started to take those courses. But there was something that I wanted to fix, because when I played World of Warcraft, I actually developed some stomach issues just from eating bad food and sitting down all the time. And really, I would say almost had I would call it probably a food addiction, where because when you play a game like World of Warcraft, it's so overly stimulating for your mind. When you're not playing it, you're looking for other dopamine rushes. And I think I did that with food. So when I played, I'd stuff myself with food. And when I didn't play, I would stuff myself with food and just found pleasure in that. So I developed some stomach issues from that. So my sophomore year of college, I started to try and fix those issues, and nothing was working. And I started to get depressed, and it had caused other issues in my life that really threw me off. But I still got good grades. I was taking 19 hours that semester and just ready to go to Georgia. But something happened to me. So I started to get, again, more depressed because I couldn't find out the solution. So I think around my birthday, or right on my birthday, I'd finished either 3 or 5 days of just water fasting. And I had called my mom and kind of let her know what I was doing. And she said, I don't think you're not doing well. You need to go see the doctor. And so I kind of agreed, because I was not in a great state of mind, and everything that I thought would fix my problems wasn't. And I think I was just kind of running down a darker hole. And so I went to the school doctor, and the doctor said, I don't think you're fit to keep going. I want you to go to the emergency room. And he said, you can either go voluntarily or involuntarily. And I said to him, like, I probably agreed in my mind that I wasn't doing well, but I said to him, I'm not going to go to the emergency room. And so at Georgia Southern with the school doctor, I actually got police escorted to the emergency room. And so I go to the emergency room. They run tests. And I actually had gone to the emergency room either once or two, I know at least once before that, to try and figure out what was wrong with me. And so they run tests. I don't think they might have came up with some stuff, just kind of doing the best that they can to diagnose something or just share something that they may think is wrong. But one of the school psychologists who was getting his master's degree came and asked me, how I was doing and what kind of thoughts I was having. And I explained to him that I had, he was like, have you had any suicidal thoughts? And I said, yes, and really I had thoughts of not wanting to live, but I wasn't contemplating on how I would end my life anymore. I was more frustrated at, the predicament I found myself in and not being able to find any solutions for my problem. So I wasn't planning on ending my life, but I wasn't wanting to live anymore. So anyway, I think that was the cue for the guy to, I got sent to a mental hospital as a result of that. And I shared, some of the other things that I was thinking, and I'm sure, not having, the thoughts that I thought were causing my problems probably sounded a little crazy, but that's what I was trying to do, anything that I could to fix my, what was going on. But anyway, I go to the mental hospital, and that was one of the craziest experiences of my life. I remember I asked one guy, what he was doing there, and he was like, well, I tried to I tried to lay in the middle of the road and get run over. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then I asked another guy why he was here. And he said, I took a bunch of pills and tried to kill myself. Like, wow, that's crazy. And I might have asked a couple more people, but I remember seeing a lady there, and she, I mean, if you could just describe just a shell of a person, like nobody on the inside. I've never seen someone with that blank of a stare, someone that gone. And I don't know what happened to this lady. I didn't ever try to talk to her, but I was definitely in a place where people weren't doing well mentally. I wasn't doing well mentally, but I was like, dang, I wasn't planning on going this far. Or I didn't think I had gone to this extent. And I understand there's obviously legal liability when you express that you've had suicidal thoughts. But I just remember sitting in my closet, sitting in my room, just really frustrated at not being able to get results. So I'm in that mental hospital, and they put me on 2 antipsychotics and an anti-anxiety pill. And those pills were, I remember feeling the effect. It was pretty immediate, and I actually started to feel anxiety even when I left the mental hospital. So this was not too far before finals that I went to the mental hospital. And so finals were actually going on while I was there, and I had straight A's. I had, again, I don't come, I'm not an IQ genius or anything like that, but I was taking 19 hours, had all A's, and I wanted to take my finals to cap all of that off and go to Georgia on a really good note. So, I started to experience some anxiety, and I remember leaving the hospital, and I was going to go take a final or 2. I know the plan was, I think, to take 2, but I got there and I took 1 and got an A. I think for most of my classes, because I had such high grades, I didn't need to take them. I took my history 1, and I actually had over 100 in calculus because they offered bonus points on every test. And thankfully, I not that I'm a genius, but I paid attention, of course, and had this academic mindset of wanting to do well. And I wasn't, my mom didn't think it would be the best idea for me to take that final. And I really wanted to take it but I got a B in the course, even getting a 0 on a final. But that's one, of course, it doesn't really matter now, won't matter in eternity. But so I go to Georgia with a really good GPA, but I'm on these pills now, and I start to get this anxiety and start to go almost into this weird state. I really don't even know how to describe it to this day, but sort of like an ethereal, weird state. And so I transfer to the University of Georgia, which has been my goal. And I'm starting to become, I become a really, the best way I can describe it is just a very almost helpless form of myself. I know I just felt really weird, and these pills just caused me a ton of anxiety. And so if a friend said I was coming up to visit in Athens, I would just have full on panic. I'd wake up with panic and all this stuff. But even before I got out there, I started to have these almost weird contortion, muscle. I don't know if I would quite call them seizures, but that's kind of the word that I've used too. But almost like this seizure-like contortion. My neck would go back, and my head, and it'd feel like my head was trying to rip off my body. I had one of those before I went out at the movie theater. I remember my sister and I went to go see a movie, and I started to experience that. And she's just like, we left, and it was scary for her, I can imagine. So I signed up for like 4 classes at UGA, and just everything feels very intimidating and very, everything was very anxiety induced. And again, I know today it was because of the pills, of course, because I never, even though I had experienced different thoughts like that, I didn't experience anxiety ever like that. I wasn't an anxious person. I was fairly confident, even though I couldn't necessarily figure out what I wanted to do with my life. That's, I won't go into too much detail about that, but while I'm trying to deal with these health issues, I don't know what to do in life. I don't know. I can do anything in life, but it's just like, what do I want to do? And just sort of struggling for meaning, struggling for purpose. So, yeah, so my whole goal at UGA now is actually not to have one of those seizure contortion like things in class. I thankfully never did, which is absolutely incredible. I ended up dropping two of my courses. I couldn't study on this medication. I would start to study, and then I would go into this, again, like this ethereal like state where and then I would start to have those contortions, and it was just completely weird. So I try to sit in on class every day, not have those seizures, come home, lay in bed, get some food obviously before that, and I'm sure I know my roommates weren't happy, because it's just like they didn't even know who I had become. Like they had no idea. I know we went to the gym one time there in Athens, one of the school gyms. I had one of these freakouts, and just like, I know they weren't happy. It was awful. That was the worst, darkest time of my life. And yeah, so that I'm pretty sure it was March. I get a text from my sister that that best friend that had introduced me to World of Warcraft, he actually passed away, and he died of a heroin overdose. It could have been, obviously what we know today, but it may have been laced with fentanyl, but I'm not exactly sure. But I didn't even know he had gone down that road. I know he got more into smoking weed towards the end of our high school years. He moved out to California, and I think got more heavily involved in that, and then moved back to Georgia. But I didn't ever know was the extent of doing something as hard as heroin. And so that really messed me up. It was very hard for me to accept his death. I was in a lot of denial. I remember just breaking down, and I couldn't even accept it. I couldn't even understand how that was possible, how that was real, especially when someone that you knew so close to you, it doesn't feel real. Doesn't feel, especially as young as, what were we, at 20. So yeah, that was heartbreaking. And then I'm having these seizure-like things. Nothing's going well in my life. I have all this anxiety. I'd gone to the emergency room, as you may imagine. I know my mom came to Athens to take me a couple times or pick me up, and I know one of my friends took me there maybe once or twice, and just, it was awful. And so I started to actually, at this point in my life, I became suicidal, in the sense of like, I was starting to think of how to end my life. I was starting to think like, my life is going nowhere. I don't, I've got nothing going on. And then one of my best friends growing up, he dies. And I just started to think about my funeral and what would happen if I died, and who would be there. And, I'm sure all the thoughts and that can come with that. And it was really something really interesting. I knew that I had this understanding that I knew that if I killed myself, I would look back on my body and regret it. I just had that understanding that I wasn't just my body, that I was something more. I don't think I had a technical term. What I would say today is, obviously we're a spirit inside of a body. We're all spirit beings with a body that you don't cease to exist once you die. Some of you may not believe that watching that, and that's not even the point of this video. But I almost had this understanding. I knew I would look back on my body and regret it. So I went to one psychiatrist, and we were trying to figure out the issue of why I'm having these seizures, and he suggested we up the dosage and start me on an antidepressant. And I took the antidepressant. I'd always been against stuff like that my whole life, and I remember starting that for a little bit, and I just knew it wasn't the answer. And I knew upping the dosage wasn't the answer, because nothing felt right. But so I ended up applying back to Georgia Southern, because I couldn't study at Georgia. I couldn't continue my education there. And I went to another psychiatrist when I got back home. My mom took me to, and he says, the reason you're having those seizures is because of the medication that you're on. And that was a huge relief for me. I thought my life, I was destined to have those things for the rest of my life. And as soon as I got off it, I stopped having that. And it was absolutely incredible. That made me really happy. I was still depressed because my life, that medication also made me gain a lot of weight at that time, and I had never been that weight or that proportion in my life. So that was incredibly dark and devastating time and just hopeless. I remember crying out in my room in Athens, and I was just like, God, if you're real, help me. And I remember immediately thinking out after that, I was just like, that was so stupid because I don't even believe in God. But I think I believed in the universe at the time still. And yeah, I would definitely say I did. And, but I didn't have any personal, like there's no talking back and forth in a sense, other than some journeys or people take this different medicine, called, I, so I listened to Joe Rogan and they would talk about ayahuasca and different stuff like that. I'm not going to get into all that. I had not done any of that, but sort of they had these visions or experiences where they heard other voices talking to them, but I had no relationship with this universe or had ever experienced anything like that or encountered anything like that. So yeah, I get off those drugs and I go back to Georgia Southern. I got put on a mild antipsychotic, and that was very mild and didn't affect me in any way, like the other drugs did. That anxiety ceased, and my life started to get back on track that summer, and I was really thankful. And so I go back to Georgia Southern. I start to exercise, and I start to get good grades, and I start to eat really, really healthy. I did something called a Whole30 diet, which is just meat and vegetables and fruit. And so I would juice, and it was actually, I would say, my senior year and that year were two really, in a sense, pivotal turning points in my life as far as perspective of what I could accomplish. Just in my own self. Again, I didn't have a relationship with God or know him at all throughout any of this. But I started to see life as just something that you can take by the horns, if you will. But yeah, my senior year and my junior year of college, I really started to kind of get in this mindset of I can go as far and as high as I want to in my life. I can be as healthy as I want to be. I can do everything. And so yeah, I ran 3 times a week. I was working out twice a week and just was getting my life back. And then I finished the semester with straight A's. I don't think I had to take any finals. And I started partying a little bit. And because I became academic, I didn't party or anything my freshman year of college. I think a little bit I did, but I really had this mindset of like, I see people and I can see what they can be inundated by. And I really just wanted to avoid that stuff and go to the upper echelon of life, or so I thought, right? And kind of avoid getting drunk all the time or partying or doing all those different things or doing drugs. So I started to party a little bit, and then at Georgia Southern, I went out for a few nights, and honestly, it's like my life at that point was comparatively, it was really good from where I had been, off those drugs, not experiencing any of those things. I was still, I remember going out and drinking and just thinking about my friend, especially, so right around Thanksgiving, I think I went out and then go to Thanksgiving, then we got 2 weeks left or whatever. And then, I started to go out. I don't think I had any finals, and I started to party, and I was just like, okay, this is kind of what I want to do. And I remember I went to Athens after that and to see my friends there, and I stayed. I think I might have went. This is just absolutely insane, and nothing that I say is to glorify any of this, but just I'm going into more detail in what I would normally be able to share with a group, just to hopefully, in a sense, be relatable, be practical, and share again how I've been brought from death to life and what a relationship with Jesus looks like. So yeah, I go out like 8 nights in a row, and my body is shot, and but I'm having the time of my life, and I think we played soccer there, and I had been playing soccer a little bit just by myself on the weekends and just kind of dribbling around. And I was just like, I noticed that I was really in really good shape. I ran like a 5K in Thanksgiving, and yeah, I remember finishing that 5K. I was like, wow, I could have gone on a lot longer. I didn't realize the real fruits of me running 3 times a week, how much that really paid off. But yeah, so I was just like, I just go into this almost this crazy whole different world of like my life. My life was in the complete pit. Being on those drugs, being in Georgia, my best friend, one of my best friends growing up, dying. To now, it's like I'm getting great grades. I don't ever have to return back to getting those seizures or whatever because I knew the source. So I was just living it up. I got my ears pierced. I was just like, I'm gonna try and make it pro in soccer and just try and really go after any dream that I may have had. It was crazy. So I got my ears pierced, and I went out here and there, but I was really just in a completely different headspace than I had ever been. But I remember, so this is the winter break before my senior year, or excuse me, my spring semester of junior year. And I had this thought in my heart. I was just like, I want God back in my life again. And so one of my best friends, my best friend today, he got born again. We had went down to the University of Florida and we had partied, and then right after that, he got born again. I had no idea what that was or anything like that. He might have told me that he found Jesus, and it probably didn't really register with me, but I knew there was some change in his life. But we were still best friends. We'd still go. We were still hanging out, and we still probably had all the same friends and different stuff like that. So, but yeah, I really wanted to connect with more people, and just I wanted to continue to live that lifestyle. But yeah, so my spring semester, remember, so my best friend had gone to a campus ministry, really, where he had learned more about Jesus. And I was still, so I kind of reverted back from, or I don't know if reverting is the right word, but I was like, I'm going to go to Catholic church. I'm going to go to mass. So I went every Sunday, and to have God back in my life again. I like the idea of the name God. Like, it felt like that was right. And I had a cross around my neck. Really, really during that winter time too, I felt like I had regained everything that I had lost through, whether it be World of Warcraft or that dark time, or just kind of everything that it was before that. I felt like I was starting to regain different parts of my identity that I felt like I had lost. I felt like actually World of Warcraft probably prevented me from doing a lot of stupid stuff, being that I played sports, and I can only imagine what I would have done in high school. I really don't want to know. So World of Warcraft makes you a little bit nerdy. I was hanging out with a completely different friend group than I would have, at the start of 6th grade. And by the time I was in junior year of high school, I was hanging out with completely different friends, friends that I never thought I would, and not to say that in a bad sense, but I just, and they're great. I still love those guys. And they're great people. But anyway, so where are we? So I started to go to one campus ministry, Tuesday nights, which was where my best friend went. And, Wednesday, I was playing basketball one time, and another guy invited me to a campus ministry. So I was going to 2 campus ministries, and I was going to Catholic mass on Sunday. And so really learning about Jesus, a lot about Jesus. And, I remember going to a service, and I'd never seen people throw out their hands up in worship. You don't do that in Catholic mass. And I was just like, that's kind of weird. And, I saw different people struggling, and I didn't really grasp that concept because I was still the mindset of like, if you want to get good grades, if you want to do well, you just do it. You just do those things. And I didn't understand what it meant to have struggles and depend on the Lord and all that stuff. So all of it was very new to me. Um, and so over the course of that semester, I kind of fell back into the health issues again. Nothing like I had experienced before, but just kind of fell back into depression, kind of trying to fix things. But that didn't really work. I decided I didn't want to pursue professional soccer or anything like that, or any of the other crazy dreams I might have had in my head. I actually dropped a bunch of courses that semester, not because I was necessarily like struggling in them, but I wanted to dedicate more time to just trying to pursue this soccer thing. And I didn't actually want to do that. And so I ended up just letting that fall off, and the other stuff, any other ideas that I might have had in my head. And so that's junior year summer. I actually had to make up some courses if I wanted to graduate on time. So I think I took 15 credit hours in a summer semester, which is actually a lot, because they're condensed into a month. That was five classes I took, 3 to start and 2 to 3 in like June and 2 in July. So yeah, that was a lot. And I actually got kind of burnt out, and I'm enjoying this. Obviously you're probably already on 2 times speed. If you're me, I probably would have been at this point anyway. But yeah, it's fun to actually get into some of the detail, because I don't always have that privilege. And so I'm just taking my time with my testimony. And I think in order to graduate on time, still kind of from that previous semester, and I'm sure that semester that I was at Georgia, where I could only finish up with 2, I finished with 2 C's, and of course only 6 credit hours. I don't know how much of that even applied to my degree. So my fall semester of senior year, I think I took 18 hours, and I'm burnt out at this point. I don't have a relationship with Jesus, even though I'm going to Catholic Mass and these different campus ministries. I had different thoughts in my head, like science and evolution and sort of all the different things that I had learned and grown up with. I wasn't ready to make that jump. And I remember one friend tried to pray with me and said, just confess Jesus as your Lord. And I physically couldn't. Because I didn't believe those words in my heart. I wouldn't have believed what I was saying. Continue kind of have this depression and stuff like that. Nothing like I had before. I didn't really, again, I kind of was back to that point of not wanting to exist, but I wasn't like suicidal in the sense of thinking about how to end my life. I just really hurting. I had a lot of pain in my heart just from everything that I thought that I had messed up in my life, whether it was from World of Warcraft or all the different unhealthy addictions that I had experienced. Thankfully, nothing was ever hard drugs or anything like that, but definitely in a sort of really drew out an addictive personality to where I try to find my identity in different things and try to find my satisfaction and meaning and purpose in all sorts of different things. So I remember, we come to November. So this is 11 months in. I started learning about Jesus in January. And I just remember I was kind of, in this dark place. But all these seeds that had been sown into me during this time, all the things that I learned, all the things that I had remembered, sort of all were really coming up and springing in my heart. I remember I had a friend, which I'm very thankful for. He didn't let me go. I had been able, when you play World of Warcraft, your life becomes that game, on that game. So all your friends are there and all your social interaction, you have to give up one thing to have the other. If you play a game like that, it does suck up a lot of your time. So I knew how to isolate myself. I knew what it was like to be isolated, because once I would stop playing World of Warcraft, it's like, I have to regain friendships. I have to start hanging out with people again. So I had gone back to an isolation period, and during college, I don't think I had played any World of Warcraft, except actually the summer right before I went. The summer that I kind of regained, or the summer that right before I went back to Georgia Southern from Georgia, I was playing. I played online poker when I was young and stuff like that, and so I was playing poker and World of Warcraft. But I was actually getting more excited about life. And then I stopped playing World of Warcraft when I played a little bit when I got back to Georgia Southern, and just kind of quit that because I just didn't care. But it was no like that wasn't like the addiction it was in previous times. But so yeah, so I started learning about Jesus. So now we're 11 months. We're in November. So I had a friend. I had gone back into this isolation mode that I had known how to get into, and he kept reaching out to me. He kept picking me up. He would take me to church and different stuff like that, and just kind of kept checking up on me. And we'd hang out and we'd get along. And he's a great guy. And but I remember there was this one night, and it was sometime I think late November, and I can't remember the exact day. But all these seeds were sown into me, everything that was shared. And I was like, I had developed sort of anxiety about food because I thought I had done so much damage to my body. And so I remember just thinking, I was like, I can lay all this anxiety about my body, everything I think about life, I can lay it all at the feet of Jesus, all at the cross, and I can follow him for the rest of my life. And it just, in a moment, everything, and I wasn't thinking about heaven or hell. Even going back to when I was at Georgia, I was in hell on earth. I didn't care about, eternal destination at that time. I wasn't thinking about heaven or hell. I just knew I hated life. I hated living. I didn't like this existence. My senior year of high school, we read some existential philosophy. So I started to learn kind of more that mindset. That depressed me a little bit, I would say, for sure. There's no ultimate meaning or purpose to life. So just live however you want. Anyway, so yeah, I laid everything at his feet, and I'm like, I just want to follow Jesus. And I had to listen to, there's a great guy named Todd White. He's got an awesome testimony, drug addict, an atheist, 22 years. And of course my best friend was instrumental, but that guy was really instrumental in me coming to Jesus. Cause I was just hearing such an authentic testimony from someone who had nothing to gain by what you would, by what, the average person would understand today from sharing all that, from being, from all the things that he experienced. Awesome testimony. Definitely recommend checking that out. Todd White is his name. But yeah, I had genuine different things that I experienced as authentic, as I wasn't going to be a Christian and just fake it. If my idea about God, especially listening to some different people, who are guests on Joe Rogan's podcast, it just kind of soured my idea of who God was. I think, one in particular. And so I wasn't going to go into this religious phony thing. I remember my freshman year of college back at Georgia Southern, someone tried to talk to me about Jesus, and I was interested in learning. I always wanted the truth. I was never closed off to the truth. And I didn't see how it could be in Christianity at that time, because I was like, well, if someone never hears about Jesus in this faraway country, and what happens to them? And I had all these different questions. So yeah, we're in November, that late November, and I gave my life to Jesus. I started following Jesus. I didn't pray a sinner's prayer or anything like that. I just like, Jesus, I want to follow you. And from that moment on, everything changed in my life. I was just a completely different person. I think, in that semester, grades wise, I think I had got my first D. I had never gotten a C up until that point, until college, but I was really burnt out, and I don't think I did homework. I didn't study or anything like that. I just kind of had like a crisis semester, and different stuff like that. Nothing. I don't want to over dramatize that, but it was nothing as bad as what I had experienced before, but just really didn't understand or wanting to know where I was going to go in life. But yeah, once I gave my life to Jesus, I remember just going back home. I think that was around Thanksgiving time as well. And just everything picked up from there. I started to go to church, and I remember there was a church in Georgia, and I remember going to like their Christmas service, whatever. And I just remember writing a Facebook status, and I just publicly proclaimed my faith in Jesus, and it was just amazing. Yeah, I think that winter went out to South Carolina and just really started to experience amazing relationship with the Lord, as I'm still experiencing today. Of course, it looks different when you first start to experience it, but still amazing, still incredible. So yeah, I gave my life to Jesus, and all the depression, all the different addictive things. I talked about identity before. Having my identity in Jesus, I had the healthiest view of myself. I had a God outside of myself that loved me, that cared for me, that wanted a relationship with me. And I know for the majority of what I shared my testimony, I shared like all of the bad, but of course the Lord was there the whole time drawing me. He was revealing his love to me, revealing who he is, that he's the way, the truth, and the life, that he's the one that can satisfy my soul. I started to read the scriptures and really understand who he is and what he wanted from me. And and not to say that I haven't ever experienced anything. So I'm coming up on 9 years of knowing Jesus, and it's been an incredible ride. Not to share that I haven't experienced different things or different thoughts, and even depression has tried to come back into my life, totally unrelated to anything I probably experienced before. I went out to Bible college and didn't do well with money, and that's a whole nother story. But I mean, there's nothing to compare that to. It was just like, I'm not happy with my circumstances type of thing. Whereas before, I was completely lost in life. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what my purpose was. But in Jesus, I have found everything. No matter what I've experienced since being in Christ, it's been mostly absolutely incredible. And I'm not trying to paint it as any sort of cherry blossoms and roses type things, but it is absolutely incredible. No matter how maybe bad of a day you may have, or a stretch of time. A lot of Christians call them seasons. It's in that Christian vernacular to call them seasons. But if you have a season of life that may not be the greatest, but I've never lost my joy. I've never lost my peace, even when I've experienced different thoughts or emotions. I know that inner joy, that inner peace that doesn't fade away. It just continually springs forth. And the only thing that would obviously be the problem in that scenario would be my own thinking or whatever. But I remember what it was like to be before Christ and what it was like after Christ. And I just feel completely satisfied today. I know who I am. I know the God who loves me. I can hear his voice. I've heard his voice for myself and for other people. I've seen people healed. I've seen incredible things. And obviously the biggest thing that I can share is what God has done in my own heart. Jesus offers in Luke 4:18-19, he offers to heal the brokenhearted, to set those who are in captivity. He offers to set them free. And so again, like I've said, I tried to find my satisfaction in all these different things. I tried to find it in many different areas, and I tried to do life on my own. And this is not like a crutch because I couldn't find anything else. I really believe it's because this is the way we were designed and wired. I know so many people today, even maybe you are watching today and you're struggling. You could be a Christian or not, but especially if you don't know Jesus, if you are experiencing all these different things, again, the point of this testimony is not to get into anything heavy doctrinal or sort of the different arguments for Christianity, but really, I believe that the Spirit of God will already be speaking to your heart, and what I hope that I'm saying is resonating with you and makes sense to you and is practical and realistic. And obviously there's an element of faith required, but you were made by God to be connected with him, to have your identity and relationship and your purpose in him. And there's nothing greater, there's no better joy that I've experienced. Someone asked me, how are you so consistent in Christ? And I said, I've tasted the pig pen of the world for 22 years. I tasted the pig pen of the world for 22 years, and there's nothing to go back to. It is a night and day difference. One of my great, and I would even call him a best friend, who a year and 9 months ago, he got born again, and he would tell you the same thing. There is no comparison to this life now that he's experiencing. And so if you're lost, if you're hurting, if you're broken, if you have any questions, if you want to talk more about this, I encourage you to reach out to me or reach out to another Christian that you know that you feel could share what the good news is. I didn't even, I'm not even going to get necessarily like, it's so amazing because the message of sin and the cross wasn't necessarily, it's the most, obviously it's the center of my life, and I understood it more and more as I learned about Christianity. But what I was missing most wasn't, what I was thinking most wasn't how bad of a person that I was or anything like that. Of course, I understand today that I was, compared to God, I was wicked. I am nothing compared to God. He has made me righteous and holy and all these things. He has redeemed me by faith and these amazing things. And I understood that more as I got on, but I was just looking for him. I was looking for a relationship with him. And so, there's people that grow up in Christian circles that know, they've heard the gospel, but they may not understand the meaning or the purpose of life. And of course, Jesus has died for our sins. The reason that I am walking in what I'm walking today is because my sins have been forgiven, all my faults, all my failures. But ultimately, the goal of the cross is a relationship with you. Jesus says that the highest form of life in John 17:3 is to know the Father and the one whom he has sent, Jesus Christ, his son. The highest form of life, eternal life. And that's how Jesus actually defines eternal life. We always hear John 3:16, for God so loved the world that whoever would believe, for God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten son, that whoever would believe in him would not perish but have everlasting or eternal life. We always hear that, but we don't understand what eternal life is. And Jesus defines eternal life as relationship with God. And the goal of the cross, there's different things that, of course, I could talk about, but it's like light and darkness trying to have a relationship together. When I was lost and I was in darkness, I couldn't have that true fellowship with God that he intended me for. But when I gave my life to Jesus, I experienced that forgiveness of sins, and I began to be able to have communion with the God who created me. So I just want to encourage you today that Jesus loves you so much. He cares about you no matter where you are, what you've done in your past. It doesn't matter because the cross speaks louder than anything that you've done in your past. And he wants you home, and he loves you, and he forgives you, and he has an amazing life plan for you. You will find meaning and purpose in him. He says, I mentioned this earlier, he says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. And John 14:6, and nobody comes to the Father but by him. Nobody has a relationship with the Father except through Jesus. No one can even enter into heaven except through Jesus. But yeah, he desires that relationship with you. And I believe God is speaking to many of you. I just encourage you to, again, reach out to me or reach out to someone you know, ask questions, start maybe going to a church that is near you. I'm happy to help in whatever way I can, but I hope that encouraged you. I hope it blessed you. And that's about as, detailed as I really get, other than obviously using specific names. But yeah, it's been an incredible ride, and I'm encouraged to be able to help other people in whatever way I can. And I know part of that obviously is being able to share my testimony. So thank you for listening. God bless you, and have an amazing rest of your day or evening or morning.